Imagine, if you will, the end of just like a really long, deeply exhausting Tuesday. You're running on fumes and you're trying to get your kid to do something incredibly simple.
Right, like the simplest thing in the world.
Exactly. Let's say it's picking up a wet, soggy, kind of mildew-smelling towel off their bed.
Hmm.
And if you're anything like me, or honestly any parent who has just hit their absolute limit, your immediate instinct is to launch into that familiar lecture.
Oh, yeah. We all have a script for that one.
We really do. The one about mold and, responsibility and the fact that you are not a maid, you spend all this energy, your blood pressure spikes, and, well, the towel usually just sits there anyway.
Yeah, completely untouched.
Right. But now I want you to imagine an alternate reality. You walk in, you see the towel, and you just say one single word, towel. And miraculously, they actually pick it up. No fight.
It sounds kind of impossible.
It does. Or picture this. You're in the middle of a grocery store, the fluorescent lights are buzzing, and your toddler is instantly diffusing into just a massive, flailing, top-of-the-lungs tantrum over a snack.
Oh, the classic aisle 4 meltdown.
Yes. But instead of dragging them out or buying the snack in total defeat, you instantly calm the storm by simply wishing out loud for a peanut butter granola bar the size of a boulder. Sounds like absolute magic, right?
I mean, it sounds like complete fiction to a lot of tired parents out there. But what you're describing isn't magic at all. It's actually the byproduct of a completely different framework for human communication.
Welcome to the Book Nook. If you're listening right now and you interact with humans in any capacity, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a manager trying to guide a team, or just, someone trying to communicate better with your partner, you're in exactly the right place.
Absolutely.
Today's deep dive is into the 30th anniversary edition of a true classic. It's often called the Parenting Bible. We are talking about how to talk so kids will listen and listen. So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber and Elaine Mazlish.
Such a landmark book. I mean, the foundational shift here is profound because the principles Faber and Mazlish outline, they aren't just clever behavioral tricks,
Right. It's not about manipulating kids into doing what you want.
Exactly. It's a fundamental shift in how we view the dignity of the child. The authors actually originally learned these philosophies from the renowned child psychologist Dr. Haim Janot, and the absolute core of his work, and by extension this whole book, is about honoring a child's inner reality.
And our mission today is to equip you with these surprisingly simple yet really profoundly effective communication tools. Because we are going to cover a lot of ground. We're breaking down how to handle intensely negative emotions without dismissing them, how to engage cooperation without nagging yourself hoarsely.
It's huge.
Oh, it's huge. And we're going to explore how to replace the entire concept of punishment with collaborative problem solving and foster real autonomy. And the best part, this applies to every human relationship in your life. Because let's be honest, adults desperately want to be spoken to with respect and empathy too.
That universal application is where this material really, really shines. Because if we want to get anyone like a toddler, a teenager, or a coworker to listen to us, we first have to take a really hard look at how we listen to them.
Yeah, and it could be a pretty uncomfortable look.
Totally. Often out of love, or maybe anxiety, or just a desperate desire to help, we skip right over the other person's feelings and jump straight into fixing the problem. We just want to make it better.
Right, and we want the crying to stop.
Exactly, but that instinct to just fix it, that is exactly where the connection breaks down.
It is wild when you start noticing this default behavior in yourself. Parents instinctively deny kids' feelings constantly. I know I've done it.
Oh, everyone does it.
A kid says, "I'm tired," and the parent immediately responds, "You couldn't be tired, you just had a 2-hour nap." Or the kid says, "It's so hot in here," and the parent argues, "No, it's not. It's freezing. Keep your sweater on."
It's so reflexive.
It really is. Or, that TV show was boring, and the parent defensively says, "No, it wasn't. It was highly educational."
Right, but think about the psychological message we are sending in those micro moments. What we are doing is teaching children not to trust their own perceptions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're essentially looking at them and saying, your internal experience of the physical and emotional world is incorrect. You cannot trust your own body or your own mind. It's a steady, daily denial of their feelings.
Which is terrifying when you put it like that.
It is. And from a neurological standpoint, this doesn't just confuse a child, it actually enrages them. Because when your internal reality is constantly invalidated by the person you trust most to guide you, your nervous system interprets that as a threat.
That makes total sense. Like if I walked outside, shivered, and said, I'm cold, and someone looked me dead in the eye and said, no, you aren't, the temperature is perfect, I would be absolutely furious.
Naturally.
And to really drill down into why this feels so terrible, the authors use what they call the boss analogy. When I read this part of the book, it was a massive light bulb moment for me. Let's walk through it, because it perfectly translates the child's experience into an adult context.
It's a brilliant exercise. So I want you to put yourself in this scenario. Imagine you are at work. Your boss comes over and asks you to do an extra highly sensitive job, and he needs it by the end of the day.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You genuinely mean to do it, but almost immediately, a series of unavoidable emergencies strike. Total chaos ensues. The servers go down, a client is threatening to pull their account, you barely have time to eat a handful of crackers for lunch.
Just visualizing this is raising my cortisol levels.
Yeah.
I've literally had this exact kind of day.
Most of us have. So the day is finally over, you're completely exhausted, you're packing up your bag to go home, and your boss marches over your desk right in front of all your coworkers.
Oh, no.
You instantly realize what you forgot, and you try to explain the emergencies, but he interrupts you and shouts, I'm not interested in your excuses. What do you think I'm paying you for, to sit around all day? Right. He tells you to save your breath and storms off. You are publicly humiliated. Your blood is boiling. On the way home, you happen to run into a close friend, and you start venting about this terrible, unfair experience.
Okay, so I'm venting to my friend. I'm telling them how awful it was, how embarrassed I am, how unfair the boss was being.
Now let's explore how your friend might respond. The authors outline the typical ways we respond to children, but they apply it to this adult situation. Let's start with the first typical response. Denial of feelings. Your friend says, there's no reason to be so upset. You're probably just tired and blowing this out of proportion. Come on, smile.
Honestly, I would want to scream at that friend.
Dude,
It completely minimizes what I just went through. It makes me feel like I'm crazy for being upset.
Okay, let's try the philosophical response. Your friend nods slowly and says, look, life is like that. Things don't always turn out the way we want. The working world is tough.
Ugh, that feels incredibly condescending. It's like they are lecturing me from a mountaintop instead of sitting in the mud with me. It makes me feel totally unheard.
How about the most common one advice? Your friend says, you know what you should do. Tomorrow morning, go straight to his office, admit you were wrong, finish the work, and make sure it never happens again.
I mean, logically, that might actually be the exact right thing to do tomorrow. But in this specific moment, when I'm still vibrating with anger and humiliation, I don't want a 10-point action plan. I want my friend to be on my side.
Exactly.
Giving me advice right now is like, it's like handing me the answers to a crossword puzzle while I'm right in the middle of trying to figure it out. It completely bypasses the emotional processing I need to do.
That's a great way to put it. We often jump to advice because another person's pain makes us uncomfortable. Solving it relieves our anxiety, not theirs. Let's look at another one. Questions. Your friend asks, what exactly were those emergencies? Didn't you realize he'd be mad if you forgot?
Now I'm on trial. Now I'm actively defending myself to the person who is supposed to be my friend.
What if they defend the boss? I can understand his reaction, honestly. He's under terrible pressure. You're lucky he doesn't lose his temper more often.
Unbelievable. I'd be thinking, whose side are you on?
Let's try pity. Oh, you poor thing. I feel so incredibly sorry for you. I could just cry.
Now I just feel pathetic. Pity makes me feel weak. I don't want to be a victim.
And finally, amateur psychoanalysis. Your friend says, has it occurred to you that the reason you're so disproportionately upset is because your boss represents an authoritarian father figure?
I would literally turn around and walk away.
Huh.
Every single one of those responses, which, by the way, are the exact responses we give to our kids every single day, fails to make me feel even slightly better.
Which brings us to the core question. What is the one thing you actually want to hear when you are in that raw state of distress?
I just want my friend to look at me and say, wow, that sounds incredibly rough. To be attacked like that in front of your peers after the day you just had, that is awful.
And that is true empathy. It tunes into the emotional frequency of the other person without trying to change the channel. When someone really listens, when they acknowledge our inner pain without trying to fix it, judge it, or analyze it, our nervous system actually begins to downregulate.
We feel less confused.
Exactly. And paradoxically, by not being given a solution, we become more able to cope with our own problem. Once your friend validates your anger, the emotional charge dissipates. You might then naturally say to yourself, well, My boss is usually fair. I'll go in early tomorrow and knock it out.
It's so true. You end up coming up with the advice yourself, but only after the emotion has been cleared out of the way.
Right.
But here's where I want to push back a little on behalf of the parents listening, because it's easy to see how this works with adults.
Mm.
But kids are still developing. Their prefrontal cortex isn't fully formed. Aren't we supposed to actively guide them?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right? Like if my kid is whining, I'm so hungry, why shouldn't I just cut to the chase, give them advice, and say, go eat an apple? Why do I need to deeply empathize with their need for a snack?
It's a very natural instinct. As parents, we view ourselves as guides and problem solvers. But jumping straight to advice with children has the same effect as it does with adults, just on a different scale. If you give someone the answers, you deprive them of the experience that comes from wrestling with their own challenges.
But surely there's a line, right? With something as simple as, I'm hungry.
Of course, context totally matters. If a child casually says, I'm hungry, and they are perfectly calm, you can absolutely just say, there are apples in the fridge. You don't need to over-therapize every mundane interaction.
Okay, phew. That's a relief.
But when a child is distressed when they come home crying and say, I hate my teacher, or I'm never playing with Sarah again, rushing in with logic completely skips the crucial step of emotional validation. A child cannot process logic when they are in a state of emotional flooding.
Because the emotional brain has taken over.
Yes, and the logical brain is essentially offline. And there's a specific word that we use all the time that completely blocks the logical brain from coming back online.
Oh, I know this one. The dreaded but. This is such a pervasive habit. The book gives a great example of a kid who has been looking forward to her friend Julie's birthday party all month, but she wakes up with a terrible fever and has to stay home.
Right, and a parent genuinely trying to be comforting might say, I know you're disappointed you have to miss the party, but it's only one party. There will be plenty of others.
And what the kid hears is, you shouldn't be disappointed. The word but acts like a giant eraser for any empathy that came before it.
The authors suggest a brilliant pivot here. They suggest replacing the word but with the phrase, the problem is. So instead of saying, I know you hate having a babysitter, but I have to go to the dentist, you say, I know you hate having a sitter. The problem is, I need to go to the dentist.
Using the problem is completely changes the dynamic. It acknowledges that two conflicting truths can exist in the same space at the same time. The child's feeling of hatred toward the sitter is real, and the reality of the dentist appointment is also real. We don't have to negate their emotion to enforce our boundary.
Exactly. It frames the dentist appointment as a shared problem to be managed.
So if we strip away all our default reactions, the advising, the lecturing, the pitying, what are we actually supposed to say when a child is melting down? It's intimidating to lose your usual script. This brings us to the mechanics of what the authors call the empathy tool belt.
The first tool in the belt is the simplest, yet often the hardest to execute. Simply listen quietly with full attention. That means no multitasking, no glancing at your phone, no washing dishes while they talk.
Which is incredibly difficult for modern, chronically distracted adults. We want to interject, we want to agree or disagree. Holding space in silence takes serious restraint.
It does. It requires us to tolerate our own discomfort with their negative emotions. The second method builds slightly on the first. Acknowledge their feelings with a word. Things like, oh, I see.
I have to say, I love this one because it's so low effort but remarkably high impact.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with what they're saying. If they say something ridiculous like, my brother's the worst person in the world, you don't have to say, yes, he is. You just have to grunt thoughtfully. I see. It acts as a conversational bridge.
The third method is where we take a more active role. Give the feeling a name. That sounds incredibly frustrating, or what a massive disappointment.
I really want to pause here because parents naturally fear this tool. The prevailing thought is, if my kid is a little bit upset and I come in and say, wow, you sound furious, aren't I going to escalate the situation? Aren't I putting words in their mouth?
That's a very common, very understandable fear. But psychologically, the exact opposite is true. Naming a feeling gives a child a vocabulary for their inner reality. It gives a shape to the chaos they are experiencing internally. It doesn't make the feeling worse, it bounds it, it contains it.
Wow.
The book shares a profoundly moving example of this with a mother whose 3-year-old son, Todd, had cerebral palsy.
Yes. This story really stuck with me. Because of his cerebral palsy, Todd would get easily frustrated when his body wouldn't do what his brain wanted it to do. He was playing with a puzzle, and he couldn't get the last piece to fit. He was gearing up for a massive, screaming tantrum. Usually in these moments, he would get so overwhelmed he would kick and bite his mother.
Typically, a parent in that situation would try to calm the child down verbally or just reach over and fix the puzzle for them. But this mother tried naming the feeling. She grabbed a piece of paper and a purple crayon. She sat down next to him and drew sharp, intense zigzag lines up and down the paper. And she asked him, "Todd, is this how angry you feel?"
She gave the feeling a physical manifestation.
Yes. And Todd grabbed the crayon from her, and he just started making wild slashing lines. He stabbed the paper over and over until it was full of holes.
Oh my God.
Right. And then he physically tore it to shreds. And this is the crucial part. While he did this, the mother didn't stop him. She didn't tell him to be gentle. She held up the shredded paper and she validated him. She said, "You are so mad. You are absolutely furious."
And the result was incredible. When he was finally finished shredding the paper, the storm passed. He looked up at her and said, "I love you, Mommy." For the first time ever.
Whoa.
Just because she didn't deny his rage.
It's beautiful. There was another story about a kid named Joshua having a tantrum, and his mom just handed him a pad and pencil and said, "Show me how angry you are." He drew angry, dark circles for about 2 minutes, and then calmly drew a smiley face and said, "Now I show my happy feelings."
What these stories beautifully illustrate is a core truth. When we urge a child to push a bad feeling away, the feeling fights back. But when we invite the feeling into the room, it processes through their nervous system much faster.
Which leads perfectly to the fourth tool. Honestly, this might be my absolute favorite because it's so creative. Give them their wishes and fantasy.
Yes. This one requires parents to tap into a bit of imagination. Think about how adults usually respond when children want something they can't have. We instinctively reach for logical explanations. You can't have the cereal because we are out of it and the store is closed. And what happens? The harder we explain the logic, the harder the child protests.
Because logic means absolutely nothing to a screaming toddler whose emotional brain is on fire.
Exactly. The example in the book perfectly captures this. A little girl is screaming for a peanut butter granola bar. Her older sister had just eaten the very last one. The mom tries the logical approach. "We don't have any left. I'll buy more tomorrow."
Yeah.
The kid, predictably, screams louder.
Naturally.
So the mom pivots to the fantasy tool. She puts on a dramatic voice and says, "Do you know what I wish? I wish we had a peanut butter granola bar as big as that picnic table outside."
It completely disrupts the expected pattern of the argument. The child stops crying, confused but intrigued, and says, "No, Mom, that would be too big."
Yeah.
So the mom heightens the fantasy. She says, "Well then, I wish we had a granola bar as big as that giant rock over there." And the child sighs happily. The tension leaves her body, and she says, "That would be good." Crisis completely over.
I have to admit, when I first read this, I was skeptical. Does giving them something in fantasy feel like teasing to a kid? Why doesn't that backfire? How does making up a giant snack actually satisfy a real-world craving?
It works because it isn't about the granola bar at all. It's about the feeling behind the granola bar. When you engage in fantasy, it shows the child that you truly understand the depth and scale of their desire. Psychologically, having someone deeply understand what you want is the next best thing to actually getting it.
You join their team.
Yeah.
You aren't the authority denying them. You are a partner in their frustration.
Yeah.
That shifts the entire dynamic.
But
There was another intense example of this in the book with a boy named Robbie who had autism.
yes, Robbie's story is a powerful testament to this tool. Robbie was hyper-fixated on seeing The Wizard of Oz on Broadway. The insurmountable problem was that the show wasn't currently playing. His mother tried repeatedly to explain this logically, but Robbie couldn't let it go. His crying over this would typically last for hours. His service providers actually told his mother that she needed to use strict punishments to train this fixation out of him.
But his mom decided to try the fantasy tool. When he started melting down about the play, she matched his intensity. She said, "I wish we could see The Wizard of Oz right now. I wish I could call the theater director and tell them to put on the play tonight just for us. We could fly to New York right now in a private jet."
And instead of spiraling into a multi-hour meltdown, Robbie smiled. He started playing along, saying, "Yeah," and I'd sit in the very front row. It calmed his nervous system down instantly when logic had completely failed.
Because logic argues with emotion, and emotion always wins that fight. Fantasy validates the emotion by matching its scale.
Beautifully said.
Okay, so we've laid the empathy foundation. We've validated their feelings, we've grunted thoughtfully, we've drawn angry circles, and we've wished for giant snacks. The child feels heard. But the reality of life is that things still have to happen. We can't just sit around wishing for granola bars all day.
Right, the laundry still needs to be done.
Teeth must be brushed. We have to get out the door for school. How do we get a child's cooperation without destroying the peaceful connection we just worked so hard to build?
This is where the rubber meets the road. To understand how to engage cooperation respectfully, we first have to look honestly at the typical parental tools for compliance. When we are stressed, we usually default to blaming like, you never listen to a word I say, or name-calling, you live like a pig in this room.
Oh, those are rough to hear out loud.
Warnings, too. If you write on the wall one more time, you're getting spanked.
Or sarcasm. Oh, it would never occur to your majesty to help me carry the groceries, would it? I cringed reading those examples because they are so universal. We've all heard them, and many of us have probably said some version of them in a moment of exhaustion.
And we have to ask ourselves, what do those methods actually produce? They might get short-term compliance out of fear, but long-term, they make kids feel resentful and stubborn. If you repeatedly tell a child they never listen, they internalize that identity. The authors offer 5 respectful alternatives to get things done, tools that bypass the guilt and the nagging entirely.
Let's walk through them. Alternative number 1. Describe what you see or describe the problem. Instead of walking into the kitchen and yelling, "Who left the milk out on the counter? You guys are so irresponsible," you just calmly describe the problem. The milk is out. Or instead of lecturing, "How many times do I have to tell you to turn off the bathroom light?" You just say, "The light is on in the bathroom."
Notice how different that feels in your body when you hear it. When grown-ups describe the problem rather than accusing the child, it gives children a chance to tell themselves what to do. It treats them as problem solvers.
It completely shifts it from a personal attack to a shared reality. You're just stating a fact. Alternative number 2 is very similar. Give information. Instead of, "Who drank the milk and left the empty bottle out?" you say, "Milk turns sour when it isn't refrigerated." Instead of, "Look at these apple cores on your bed, you're disgusting," you say, "Apple cores belong in the garbage can."
Information is a lot easier for the human brain to process than accusation. Accusation triggers the amygdala, the brain's threat detector, and causes defensiveness. Information engages the prefrontal cortex.
Alternative number 3 is my absolute favorite. Say it with a word. Kids constantly tune out long sermons. If a kid is walking out the door for school without their lunch, instead of delivering a paragraph-long speech about how they'd forget their head if it wasn't attached, you'd say, "Janie, your lunch."
Less is truly more. The shorter the reminder, the better. The psychological reason this works is about cognitive load. When you just say pajamas or the dog, you give the child's brain the cognitive space to figure out what needs to be done. A single word acts as a cue, not a command.
If we frame this around adult roommates, because honestly, this is exactly how adults want to be treated, it becomes so obvious. Think about it. If your roommate left their shoes right in the middle of the hallway and you tripped over them, you wouldn't say, "You're so irresponsible. You have zero respect for shared spaces."
No, you'd sound like a maniac.
You would. You'd just describe the problem or use one word, "Hey, your shoes are in the way," or just, "Hey, shoes." We need to afford children that same basic human dignity we afford our peers.
Exactly right. Alternative 4 is describe your feelings. Make absolutely no comment about the child's character. Instead of saying you're a pain in the neck, you say, "I don't like having my sleeve pulled." By describing what we feel, we can be genuine without damaging their self-esteem.
And alternative 5 is to write a note. I thought this was so creative. Instead of nagging a kid every single day to hang up their towel, you write a note from the perspective of the towel. You pin it to the wall. "Please put me back on the rack so I can dry. Thanks, your towel."
It leverages playfulness. The authors share a fantastic story of a mother who folded a paper airplane and flew it into the room where her kids were playing. Neither of these kids could even read yet, but the plane had "Toys away after play, love mom" written on the wing.
Oh, I love that.
They were so delighted by the airplane that they ran out to ask her what it said and then eagerly ran back to put away their toys.
It injects novelty into what is usually a tense demand. Okay, so describing the problem or writing a note works great for wet towels and sour milk, but we have to address the elephant in the room. What about when things escalate? What if a child breaks a serious rule, hits a sibling, or continuously misbehaves? Our knee-jerk reaction is to punish them, send them to their room, take away their screen time. But the authors suggest a radical, almost terrifying pivot away from punishment entirely.
This is undeniably the hardest pill for most parents to swallow. It challenges everything we've been taught about discipline. But what actually happens in a child's brain when they are punished? The parent assumes that by sending the child to their room, the child will reflect on their bad behavior and resolve to be a better person. But psychologically, punishment creates a massive distraction.
Right. Instead of feeling sorry for what they did to their brother, the child becomes entirely consumed with anger, resentment, and revenge toward the parent. They sit in their room thinking, I hate my mom, she's so unfair. They aren't thinking, gosh, I really shouldn't have hit my brother.
Precisely. The text quotes Dr. Selma Freiberg, a pioneer in infant psychiatry, who warns about the deep psychological dangers of punishment. Furthermore, from a behavioral standpoint, by punishing them, we actually free the children from the burden of inner guilt. We give them an external enemy-us to focus on taking revenge on, rather than taking responsibility for what they did.
That is a staggering insight. By punishing them, we relieve them of the difficult internal work of feeling remorse. So what is the alternative? How do we move a child from a state of revenge to a state of responsibility?
The alternative is collaborative problem solving. It consists of a few specific steps. First, you talk about the child's feelings. You seem really frustrated with your brother when he touches your Legos. Second, you talk about your feelings without attack. I get worried when I see hitting because someone could get hurt. Third, you brainstorm together to find a mutually acceptable solution. And the golden rule of brainstorming is write every single idea down without judging it, even the totally ridiculous ones.
The sofa pits example in the book perfectly illustrates how this diffuses tension. Two kids are eating peaches and leaving the sticky, messy pits all over the living room sofa. The typical parent reaction is to storm into the room, hold up a sticky pit, and yell, "Who did this? You're both grounded from TV for a week."
And what happens? The kids lie. They point fingers. It wasn't me, he did it. They go into self-preservation mode. But the problem-solving approach completely changes the dynamic. The parent announces, I'm not interested in knowing who did it. I am only interested in seeing improvement for the future. Now I'd like both of you to help clear the sofa.
It removes the defensive posture immediately.
Yeah.
You are triggering action instead of defense.
Exactly. And if the peach problem is recurring, you sit down at the table with a piece of paper and brainstorm. You ask, how can we enjoy peaches without ruining the living room sofa? And you write down their ideas. Maybe one of them playfully suggests, ban peaches from the house entirely.
And the physical act of writing down a child's ideas, even the silly ones, builds immense self-esteem. But I have to pause here and channel every strict parent listening right now. If there's no punishment, don't the kids just walk all over you? Don't they need to face consequences to learn how the real world works? If I just brainstorm with them, aren't I being a permissive pushover?
It's a vital question. But we have to clarify what we mean by consequences. Very often, what parents call logical consequences are just thinly disguised punishments. You left your bike out in the rain, so the logical consequence is you can't ride it for a week. That's not a natural consequence. That's a parent-imposed penalty designed to cause suffering.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Right. True collaborative problem-solving requires the child to genuinely help fix the problem they created. If they hit their brother and broke his toy, they might have to use their allowance to buy a new toy or spend an hour helping rebuild the Lego set. Taking genuine responsibility for your actions takes significantly more personal accountability than simply sitting in your room harboring resentment.
Taking responsibility is the first crucial step toward autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And as parents, our ultimate job is to basically make ourselves obsolete. We want them to grow up and function as capable adults. How do we build that daily independence?
The authors lay out 6 actionable skills to encourage autonomy. The first is to let them make choices, even small ones. Do you want the red shirt or the blue shirt? Giving them choices gives them daily practice in being decision makers.
The second skill is show respect for a child's struggle. This one is so hard for me. When a child is struggling to open a jar, our immediate instinct is to grab it and say, here, let me just do it. But doing it for them reinforces the message that they are incapable. Instead, we can validate the difficulty. A jar can be really hard to open. Sometimes tapping the lid with a spoon helps break the seal.
You are providing a tool, not a rescue. The third skill is don't ask too many questions. Think about when kids come home from school. Parents bombard them at the door. How was your day? What did you do? Who did you play with? And how do kids instinctively respond? They throw up defensive walls. Fine. Out. Nothing.
Because it feels like a police interrogation. They are exhausted from being managed by adults all day. It's much better to just say, welcome home, I'm so glad to see you. Let them come to you when they are ready.
The fourth skill is don't rush to answer their questions.
Okay, wait, I need you to explain this one. Why shouldn't we answer their questions? If my kid looks up and asks, "Why is the sky blue?" Isn't it my literal job as a parent to teach them about the world?
It is your job to help them learn how to learn. If you immediately give them the factual answer, you are doing all the mental work for them. Think of it like lifting weights. If you lift the dumbbell for them, you get stronger, but their muscles don't grow at all. Reflecting the question back, saying, "That's a really interesting question, what do you think?"
Hmm.
forces their mental muscles to engage.
I love that weightlifting analogy.
Oh.
Let them lift the mental weight. The fifth skill builds on that. Encourage them to use outside sources. If they ask a question you genuinely don't know, say, "I don't know why the dog is scratching so much. Maybe we should ask the vet." It teaches them resourcefulness.
And the final skill for autonomy is perhaps the most poignant. Don't take away hope. By trying to protect children from disappointment, we often inadvertently protect them from hoping and dreaming.
The horse dream story in the book illustrates this beautifully. A 9-year-old girl decides she desperately wants a horse. A typical practical parent might shut that down instantly with harsh logic. "We can't afford a horse, we live in the suburbs, pick something else."
But this particular father simply listened to her dream. He didn't promise her a horse, but he didn't crush the fantasy either. He just explored it with her. Because her dream was allowed space to breathe, she started checking out books about horses. She started saving her weekly allowance in a jar labeled horse money.
That's so sweet.
And eventually, she got a weekend job sweeping out stalls at a local stable. And then, when she turned 14, her interest naturally shifted. She used her accumulated horse money to buy a high-end 10-speed bike.
Her hope wasn't crushed, it evolved. And look at the skills she built along the way. There's another great phrase for defending autonomy discussed in the book: "when he's ready." This is the ultimate tool for defending your child's autonomy in public.
Yes, public pressure is so tough. You're at a family gathering, and a well-meaning relative says, "Why is she hiding behind your leg? Why is she so shy?" The parent feels embarrassed and pressures the child to conform, but you can politely establish a firm boundary by simply saying, "She'll say hello when she's ready."
It respectfully tells the relative to back off, and it silently communicates to the child, "I trust your internal timeline." Okay, so we've covered handling negative emotions and the struggles of autonomy.
Yeah.
But what about when they do something right? What about when they succeed? It turns out even our praise might be inadvertently holding them back.
We live in a culture that absolutely overpraises children. We constantly throw out phrases like, "Good boy, you're fantastic, you're a genius." But this type of evaluative praise is actually a judgment. And being judged, even positively, can make kids highly anxious. If you tell a child they are a genius, they might become afraid to try challenging things in the future because they don't want to lose the genius title.
Yeah, they become praise junkies. So
Yeah.
what is the alternative to "good job"?
Descriptive praise. Instead of evaluating the child's character, you simply describe exactly what you see.
There's a perfect example of this with a 4-year-old who brings their mom a piece of paper covered in messy scribbles and asks, "Is it good?" The mom's first instinct is to say, "It's beautiful, you're a great artist." But instead, she practices descriptive praise. She looks closely at the paper and says, "I see you went circle, 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 wiggle, wiggle, dot, 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 slash."
And the child is absolutely thrilled because the parent actually took the time to see their work. The profound beauty of descriptive praise is that it allows the child to praise themselves. If you walk into your teenager's room and instead of saying, "Good boy for cleaning up," you look around and say, "I see the clothes are in the hamper and the bed is made," the child's brain processes that evidence and concludes, "I am a responsible person."
You are giving them the undeniable evidence. This creates an emotional bank account that cannot be taken away. You can take away the title "good boy" just by calling him a bad boy tomorrow when you're mad.
Right.
But you can't take away the factual reality that he took out of his toys.
And this ties directly into escaping negative labels. If a child is consistently labeled the clumsy one, they will start to act that role out. We have to purposefully put them in situations where they can see themselves differently. When a traditionally clumsy child drops a glass, we absolutely do not say, "There you go again, Butterfingers." We replace the negative label with descriptive praise of their positive, capable moments.
Bringing all these tools together, it really creates a radically different emotional climate in the home.
It is a complete paradigm shift. It moves us from the exhausting work of trying to control human beings to the deeply rewarding work of connecting with them.
And as we said at the top of the show, who actually benefits from this book? Anyone who interacts with humans. We all want our negative feelings acknowledged without being dismissed. We all hate being nagged. We all want to be invited to be part of the solution rather than being punished.
To wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder. If we spend our days commanding, advising, evaluating, and punishing children, we really shouldn't be surprised when they grow up to be adults who naturally demand, instruct, judge, and punish others. They learn what they live. But if we actively change our daily language to one of deep empathy, active listening, and collaborative problem solving, what kind of world could a generation raised on mutual respect build?
That is a powerful question, and it starts with exactly how we talk to the people in our lives today. Please subscribe to the Book Nook so you never miss an exploration with us. And we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us which book you'd like us to explore next. We read every single one.